Cameras. 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 All the cameras. 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 That's probably enough of that. All right. So here's fucked up. What's up, boys? It's Sandwich Jones. This light just fell, and my camera fell. The cats are yelling from the other room. This is not enough space for this. And frankly, I just don't give a fuck anymore. So if you see stuff in the frame, as I can see from my display, which you can see in the frame, hey, who cares? Don't care. Don't give a fuck. Don't give a shit. Fuck. Don't care. Okay? I got a complaint that I cuss too much. I'm sorry. I'll try better. Don't fire me. Oh, you can't. You can't fire me. So yeah, there's that. I have a hard time not cussing. I was not legally, but contractually obligated not to cuss for a long time on social media as a whole. And now I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck at all. So we're gonna have a little quick primer today. I'm not gonna try to blow through too much time of yours. I know that's valuable. But the strangest requests I get, because I tried this live streaming thing for a short time where I would get on a live stream and I would just make something on the spot. And no one gave a fuck about that. But the few people that sort of almost gave a fuck had a few questions, and most of their questions were really as like far more simple than I thought they would be. In the sense of like the things that I guess I take for granted because I've been doing this for so long that I don't think about, which is things like f-stops and lens choices and just general things. So I'm gonna try to do this in an organized way because I don't have a teleprompter. I gave that the fuck up real fast. We're just gonna talk about cameras. And let's just do it. So I want you to say something with me first, okay? I want you to say this with me. A camera is just a tool. I'm gonna say it one more time because my cats are being loud. Fuck off. Fuck off. That was a long one. He's upset. You good? You done? Think so. I think he is. So we're gonna say it one more time. Cameras are just a tool. Very upset. Being that cameras are just tools, you do not have to have the highest quality one. You don't have to have the best one. The best camera you have is the one that you have currently. Even if it's just your fucking phone, okay? It is. It's still good. It's still good, I promise. And, you know, the thing that happens is you fall into this endless spiral of, I've got to have this camera now, and well, this camera does this different, and if I get this camera, then sure as shit, it'll be better than the one I have now, and it'll be a dramatic difference, and it's generally not. The only time I've had I've had some dramatic differences, but we're talking like I went from a Canon T2i Rebel to this. Yeah, that'll do it, Dad. So what I have in my hands here is my other Blackmagic. This is the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. I'm making sure it's in focus. Right there. Currently it has on a fisheye that I just put my dirty fucking hands on. And, you know, this was my main camera for the whole year. This was the first cinema camera I ever bought. I bought it in March, right when the lockdown started. And everything got canceled, so I really just had time to film cats. That's all I did for months. The difference between this camera and the one we're filming with is that's the 6K, which has a different lens mount. I'm almost done. He doesn't care. This camera, I have to hold this up. This framing sucks, but this has a micro 4/3 mount, meaning basically that's just the name of the mount. It's Micro Four Thirds. It's a smaller sensor. It's a little tiny fella in there. And Panasonic's pretty popular for these. There's a couple other companies, Olympus, and all these companies make great lenses. And it's a lot of people will complain that this, since it's a smaller sensor, it doesn't take in as much light, which is true, mostly, but it's still a fantastic sensor, especially in this camera. I believe it's the same sensor as the GH5 from Panasonic, but with Blackmagic's secret sauce. The reason I went with Blackmagic over other companies is simple, really. I got emotional when I seen their post about these. I was like, holy shit, this is everything I've ever wanted. So the value of a Blackmagic camera is, if you see there, and I'll probably have to film a close-up, but we've got a couple of different options. We've got a USB-C port. We've got a small, tiny XLR connection, which sucks, but they make adapters, it's whatever. We got a full-size HDMI, which is really the benefit. And it's got this little Lima, I think it's called the Lima plug, which is where the power connects to, because this does come with its own wall power, but you can also get modified cables that use this and connect with battery systems, because the battery that this takes is the Canon ELP6, which is just a model number for the particular battery. Basically any recent, I think all the way back to like Rebels, some of the Rebels had them, I'm not sure, but it's all the same battery. So like, it's a really common battery that goes in this, but it lasts about 30 minutes. It's awful. So I actually use much larger Sony batteries that have a little mount that goes on top. And it basically, like, I think I go through 3 batteries in a day when I'm doing weddings, which is about 8 hours of work. So it's a far better system. But the reason I went with this system specifically is because of Blackmagic RAW. Blackmagic RAW is amazing. You can change your ISO in post, you can change so much stuff in post, and you have so much flexibility to do things. And I think that's super important, especially when you're a run and gun type person, because not everybody has a studio setup. This doesn't count as a studio setup. This is a hot fucking mess, what this is. But when you're run and gunning and doing weddings and music videos with no budgets and no fancy lighting, you need flexibility in post, because say one light is 5600 Kelvin, which is the color temperature, and one's super warm, you're gonna need some magic, and Blackmagic supplies it. So I think as far as that goes, it's a value, and especially for the price. This camera is $1,250. I mean, most good Canon DSLRs are that price. And as far as lenses, I mean, this fisheye, this 8mm lens right here, I got it off Amazon for $70. The lens we're using currently on this is a Zeiss Contax, which is a vintage lens, but I mean, I think they're under $100, if not, they're at least under $150. So you have plenty of choices. Now, as far as the camera that we're filming with, this is the Blackmagic 6K. It even has more lens options. It is an EF mount, which is Canon's proprietary basic ass mount that's on all their cameras, unless you're into the newer stuff. So pretty much there's any lens choice you could have for this. It's super cheap. But when we're shooting in 6K, you don't have to. I just like to. None of this is, we're back to the same saying that all cameras are tools. If you're shooting with your phone, they make cool little extra lenses you can get from Amazon to change your look up, because this is all about texture when you're talking about artistic expression. Every lens has a different thing. Like this lens is insanely shallow depth of field, and it's super imperfect. It has haze and mold in it. It just has a look. And you know, if you're looking for super sterile stuff, there's that too. I mean, there's just millions of options. But I think what we're going to cover real quick is aperture choices. So with this lens that we're using currently, this is set to I think it's like a f4 right now, because these are really bright. These are really bright, and I don't have anybody pulling focus. These cameras do not have autofocus. You have to do it yourself. So I set it in a way that I can move quite a bit and not worry about being completely out of focus. This is also a manual lens completely, so changing your aperture is the same as this one. That's changing your aperture. and then there's your focus. I think it's important to learn how to do those things manually. Autofocus is the fucking godliest thing ever, and I played around with it with the new Canon stuff. But if you can do this, then, you know, you can be in any situation. Say someone needs a backup and they use specific cameras and you're gonna go shoot with them and you gotta use their stuff and it's all manual, you'll be ready to rock. You don't have to worry about it. It's super important. Now, I'm gonna try to include a shot of what an aperture looks like. So basically inside of every lens is little blades, little tiny inside of there. And when you open and close this, well, you can kind of see it. You see it go dark? It's got blades and they converge together when you close it up. Now, the more open, the lower the f-stop. The more closed, the higher the f-stop. So what you want to think about is the more open the aperture is, the more light's coming in and the more shallow your depth of field is. And by depth of field, I mean where your focus lands. Where, say you're at like f4 like this currently, I got quite a bit of range. Whereas if I went all the way down to like f1.4, if I moved an inch, like my eyes would be out of focus, only my fucking honker would be in focus, which is a great thing. I mean, it looks amazing because you can get all these crazy specific shots and it looks super moody. I think that I am addicted to bokeh, which is where the background's just completely blurred out. And this is what we're talking about with the depth of field. I'm addicted to it because I think it gives everything such a specific focus. Like whatever you're focused on, everything else is blown out. Your peepers are sant right on to whatever you're focused on. But that comes some specific challenges when you're manually focusing, and say it's like a person running or walking. You've got to be dialed. You got to know your lenses. If I had a recommendation for someone to start, I would say start like I did. And maybe that's because I'm biased. But get one lens, one camera, and just play around. I started with a Canon T2i Rebel and a 50mm Canon f1.8, which I still have that lens and I still have the camera body. That lens taught me everything I needed to know because I would constantly shoot it at f1.8, which meant there was just tons of bokeh. It was Boca Town, Boca Raton, you know what I mean? There's tons of it. And anytime I'd shoot group photos and they weren't perfectly across, somebody's fucking face would be out of focus. It took me a long time to learn, oh, no shit, I should, you know, close up my aperture a bit to like f2, f2.8, f3, suddenly everybody's in focus. But with that, like we said, your lighting's different. It's not taking in as much lighting. So this is where we start talking about ISO. Now with ISO, every sensor has a native ISO. Another great thing about these cameras is they have dual native ISO. So that means they look awesome at 400 ISO and 3200 ISO. Everything in between is different. They have charts for most cameras. And that chart will basically tell you like where the camera looks the best. That chart will tell you where things start to change, because basically, like say with this camera, it's the best at 400 and 3200. I always try to stay at 400 ISO. I'm at 400 ISO currently. It gives me the exact amount of dynamic range. Dynamic range meaning from the highlights to the shadows, everything is captured. If I go down to 100 ISO, I start like losing a bit in the shadows, but I gain more in the highlights, and it kind of varies. So you've really got to study that with your camera, whatever it may be, and understand where that dynamic range sits, so you can properly plan for that sort of thing when filming, especially out in the wild where there's no perfect lighting and the sun may be super crazy and you're trying to backlight somebody, and it's a whole thing. Damn, these lights are fucking hot. How can I put this? It's a proper balance. Like I said, I don't have a script. I'm not doing that. Fuck it. I'm just talking to you. Fucking haunted. It's a proper balance with all of this. The entire ecosystem, from the moment you start filming to the moment that you're in post, it's all an ecosystem. that has to be in perfect balance. Or not perfect, but you want to get there. So like say I'm shooting, like this currently is a great example. I have one hot ass light here and one hot ass light below me that's trying to just balance it out because I have that big ass fucking forehead and brow. I'd like to get some light onto the peepers and not show how tired I look. Like if we close that off, it looks like this. If we turn that light off, basically, yeah, it's spoopy. Suddenly I look very spoopy. Whereas I do that and, you know, different looks. But if I look down and look up, we're all in there. And I'm still in focus, right? Yeah, but it's 6K. You can't tell if I'm in focus or not, bitches. I'm tired. I just wanted to make a video. Kiss my ass. But for this situation, we have that light and that light. So we have tons of light. We have plenty of light. If I wanted to do an actual, you know, if I wanted to key out the background, I'd have lights on that. But I just kind of, it's blue, it looks nice. It's working. Fuck it. But with this setup, I'm at ISO 400. I think I'm around f4. I can go look. For fuck's sakes. No. Okay. Are you in focus? Correction, I am at f2.8 currently on this 50mm Zeiss Contax. Probably could have went even further. I'm still in focus though, so that's all that really matters. But I'm at f2.8. I think my shutter speed's a little high. It's probably 1/100. You don't really want to do that all the time. And the reason for shutter speed is it's how fast. With this, it's a rolling shutter, and it basically scans from the top of the sensor to the bottom. So what you want to think about is that how many times per second it scans. 1/60 is like the cinematic choice, and the reason for that is because it gives a bit of motion blur. And this still will, but not as much. Now, if you watch an action movie like Cranked or any of those, they tend to use a higher shutter speed, so nothing gets a ton of motion blur and it looks a little faster, a little choppier. It's just stuff to think about in that department. But the reason I did it here is just to kind of tone down, because the more, with shutter speed, the higher the number, the faster it's scanning, the less light the sensor's taking in as well. So you're thinking about your f-stop, your shutter speed, both of those affect how much light the sensor's taking in, which then you have to adjust with your ISO. And you never really want to crank that ISO, you want to find a proper balance. And it's kind of the beauty of having lenses like this where the max is f1.4, because it can take a shit ton of light in to counteract the amount of shutter speed you may need and the ISO that you may require for low light situations, and etc. Now, if you want to have nice shallow depth of fields in daylight, then you need a neutral density filter. And what that does is it's a filter that just screws onto the front of your lens, and it's like having sunglasses for your lens. It's a nice way to close off some of the light going to the lens so you can get that shallow depth of field, and you don't have to crank your shutter speed and your ISO, shut it down and all that. And someone keeps calling me. Yep. So at the end of the day, I hope to make more videos like this. I know this is kind of just a quick one, but really I'm just trying to figure out this format. I do videos for everybody under the sun, and it's really enjoyable because I get to do my thing, use my brain powers with cameras. But this has been a fucking pain in the ass, and I'm sweating. And I don't know how to organize these videos, so I'm gonna work on it. We'll see how this one comes out. If you got any suggestions or things you'd be interested in me blabbing about, well, fucking hit me with them. Don't hesitate. It's your pal, Sandy Jones. And I'm gonna turn off this microphone. Damn, 20 minutes.